Hello, I'm Alice and welcome back to my channel, my latest book section. 2020, it's been a year so far. With the coronavirus being a giant pandemic all across the globe, not just here in the United States, I, like many other people, have been trying to quarantine and when we can't, social distancing in stores. Seeing as I can't just go out to like the movies or going to see my friends, which doesn't happen a lot anyways, I have really been reading a ton during this quarantine. So last week, as I was trying to do my mid-year book freak out tag, I was looking at all the books I had read this year, and I specifically looked at how many I've been reading since quarantine started in the middle of March. I found that I have read 30 books somehow. So, one, how did that happen? I don't think I've ever read 30 books in the span of a little over 3 months in my entire life. This is insane to me. So with reading so many books, yes, while a number of them have been rereads, I've read a lot of books that I've either missed out on when they came out, or I've just not really heard people talk about, and I just found them while looking through my library's ebook service. So with this video, I wanted to look back on the past 3.5 months and go over all the books I've read. Now, I will try and keep each book short because 30 books, that's a lot. I will try and give like a 1 or 2 sentence synopsis of the basic plot of what's happening and then my thoughts of what these books are. We're gonna try and keep this short. Hopefully this video doesn't end up too long. We'll see what ends up happening. But without further ado, let's get into the video with our first section. First up, we have what was originally called the Grisha Trilogy, but then later changed to the Shadow and Bone Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. This trilogy consists of Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Moon and Rising. I really loved the world that this series set up. Robco was really cool in how it took a lot of inspiration from Russia and Russian folklore, and it's really cool to see that and learn about something that I didn't necessarily know. The characters are really fun. I am in love with Nicola. I love the magic system. It's really cool. It's a really great introduction to this world, and the world only gets better as you continue to go in my opinion. Up next we have the Six of Crows duology, which consists of Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Now, I said I love the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but this is so good. I love all the characters. If you watched my last video, you know that I am obsessed with Inej. She's great. But everyone in this series works so well, and we get dynamics between every single characters, and that makes it really interesting. I wish this series was longer, but also not, because I don't want to make these characters go through any more awful stuff than they already do, even though I know after the series, I'm sure so many of them go through more awful things because they're like troubled people, and while they're better at the end of the series, they're still completely messed up. This section consists of books that I either started a long time ago and have finally gotten around to finishing, or books by authors that I'm a big fan of that I also just haven't read for some reason. So basically books I've put off forever to read, but I've finally gotten the chance to read them. First up we have Replica by Lauren Oliver. So first of all, I've had this book for a long time. I've had it since it's come out, and I've finally gotten around to finishing it. I read the Gemma half first, and I enjoyed it. It was okay. But then I recently finally read Lyra's Side, and that I really loved. Her way of thinking after being phrased basically as just one of many people that are exactly like her, and I really enjoyed it. I liked it. Next we have Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This book is told like a combination of files, so you get a ton of different styles of writing. This book I've been trying to read for a long time. It's just the format of it with the files. It takes a lot of focus to read, so I did struggle with it for a long time, but I really do like it. I think I liked it better than the sequel. I think it delved into interesting like space sci-fi things that we don't see a lot in YA, with wormholes and things changing with time. So I really did enjoy this. It took me far too long to read it, but I had to be in the right set of mind. And with quarantine having nothing going on, it was perfect because my brain was completely able to devote itself to this book, which is what I feel is best when you're trying to read any of the Lumine books. Next we have Legacy of Secrets by Ridley Pearson. If you don't know what this book is, about, which you probably don't because I've never heard anyone talk about the Disneyland series or the original series, Kingdom Keepers, on book 2, but this book follows the Kingdom Keepers, who are the main characters from the Kingdom Keepers series. They are sent back to the opening days of Disneyland to try and stop the formation of this group of all the Disney animated villains, because they are real in this world and take over at night the Disney parks. So I didn't read this book for a long time because I had read the first book in this series and it was really disappointed. Didn't feel like it was a complete plot of the book. It just felt like you're almost at the first third, which I know it's a trilogy, but I feel like each book should still have its own plot. And then I read this one and the plot felt way more complete. I felt like we got more things done. We got to see the opening Disney, which is so fun to me because, as I said, I'm a giant Disney nerd, so this series and the Kingdom Keepers series just makes me feel so happy because they go backstage at Disney, which is literally a dream of mine to do. So I really do recommend the series. It is middle grade, but I think it's really good. And if you do like Disney, the Kingdom Keepers series and then in turn this series is super good. Next we have Superman Dawnbreaker by Matt Dillapena. So I've read the rest of the books in the DC Icon series, so this is the last book in that collection that I haven't read. And I have to say, this is kind of my least favorite of them all. I don't know what about this book I don't necessarily like. I love that it is a Smallville-esque story and it feels like it fits right into the TV show, which I love. I think part of the reason that I don't like this as much is because it falls into the trap that a lot of times Superman things can fall into of Clark Kent being a boring character almost because he's all-American and almost perfect. But to me, it's not anything new for the Superman legacy. I've seen Superman deal with this a lot in movies, so I think that's why I didn't like it as much. Next we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. So I didn't read this book for a long time because Laini Taylor's Daughter of Smoke and Bones trilogy was very hard for me to read, but I really liked Strange the Dreamer. I thought it had a different writing style that I could connect to a lot easier and stay interested in. My problem with this book is I didn't necessarily like the characters, and when everything happened at the end, I wasn't invested. I didn't feel like I cared that much about it, unfortunately. Last in this category, we have Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen M. McManus. This book follows twins that are forced to move to their mother's hometown to live with their grandmother when their mother goes into rehab. And this town is full of murder, and as soon as they get there, there are new threats that the homecoming queen will be killed. So we're trying to figure out who did it and who killed and kidnapped people in the past. I'm someone that likes to try and guess who did it, and usually I'm pretty good about guessing it. This book I was not able to guess, and I was actually pretty excited about that, unlike Karen M. McManus's other book, One of Us is Lying. I'm just being upfront about it. I'm 100% Cassandra Clare trash. I own all his Shadowhunter books, and I'm obsessed with them. So this all started when Chain of Gold came out, and I read it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. I love every single character, except for you, Grace. I don't know how to feel about her. She's had awful things done to her, but she still does awful things to other people. That's because what she's been taught. So I don't know how to feel about her, but I don't like her right now. So after reading Chain of Gold, I then got in a need to read more Cassandra Clare, because whenever I read one of her books, I want to read 10,000 more of her books. So I read City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, and Clockwork Princess, and I love these books all so much for different reasons. Honestly, I can't even go into how much I love these books, because that would be its own 2-hour-long video of how much I love Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter world. It's just so good. The Shadowhunter Chronicles is 10 out of 10, and if you somehow haven't read it yet, you need to. Oh, are we on to the part of the video where I now talk about all the books I've reread 100 times, but I still keep going back to because I love them? Sounds okay. So I got Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. I was just in a mood for a good road trip book. And this is I think the only one I own. But also we got Magic and we got Baz being fabulous and Simon being depressed, which is kind of annoying. boring, but it's fine. There was literally no reason for me to reread this. I just needed it in my life. Next I read Renegades and Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer. These are the first 2 books in the Renegades trilogy. Like, it's just fun and the characters are really fun, so I'm like, we need a good, like, fun, happy book, but like, I'm not too happy that like, it's only happy but makes me sad also. Next we have My Life with the Vulture Boys by Allie Novak. I just love this book. It's just a good, cutesy, contemporary, mostly fluff, but honestly, I love fluff books. Like I say, I love YA trash, and this is some good ones. Honestly, I wanted to watch Cheaper by the Dozen too, and it's not on Disney Plus right now. And so this has very much Cheaper by the Dozen feels, because you know, the 12 children, and like feeling pretty out of the elements, so we read this book instead. Lastly in this section we have The Selection by Kiera Cass. I love this book. As I said, I am like complete Kiera Cass trash, love her. She's so good. She writes great YA trash books. And I read this book because of what's next. The Betrothed by Kiera Cass. I can't even like explain how angry this book makes me. I just talked about why I don't like this book in my last video, link up here. It made me so angry because I had high hopes for this book and like it let me down so much. And so obviously I had to read a good Kiera Cass book in this selection and just get that trash in me so I don't have this awful trash. And speaking of royalty, let's move on to that section. First up we have Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rosh. I really like this book. As I said, I was surprised by it. I wasn't expecting much from it. I love some of the characters very much. Some of the characters just kind of there, like Prince. Parts of this book were really hits, and then part of it was a miss. Next we have Princess of the Midnight Ball by Jessica Day George. This book is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses story, which I only know from the Barbie movie. I like this book a lot. I thought it was really cool. I don't know where the series can go from here because it felt very contained in itself. We had everything wrapped up in a nice little bow with like, you know, who's gonna end up with each other. These princes of like, basically hell are like trapped there. So like, I know kind of where this would go, but I'm fine with just reading the first book in this series because it feels complete and it's like its own story and a little bow on top, like I said. Next we have Roll Heroes by Rachel Hawkins. It felt like it took a while to get into like the main chunk of the story because like the description on the back was like, oh, there is a setup romance, which is always a fun trope, but it took literally over half the story to get to that point. So I was like, the pacing was a bit rough on that book, but I really did like it. The main character was very relatable of like, why do I have to do this? Lastly, in our royal drama section, we got the 4th book in the Princess Diaries series, Princess in Waiting by Meg Cabot. If you've seen the movie version of this book, you pretty much knows what happens, except in the book version, Mia is 100% more annoying and just focused on literally, does Michael like me the entire time. So, like, you get moments of fun where we meet this like Italian, I think he's a prince, and he's very fun, but then we go back to Mia being like, oh my goodness, does Michael like me? Even though we know Michael likes her because he said, I love you, which is really bad. But if you are a fan of the movie, you probably won't like the book that much. Yeah, so with quarantine, it's not felt like summer, like, at all. Because, yeah, well, I'm doing pretty much the same thing I would do in normal summers. I usually go see movies a lot, and I can't do that now. Or just be outside or go to stores. So, you know, instead I need to read contemporaries to convince myself it's summer, because contemporaries are like the equivalent to summer. They're just cute, fluff. You don't need to focus too hard, especially on the ones I've had for this section. And they're just like, sitting in a pool, facing the sun, just laying there. That's like how I describe contemporaries, because I feel it's pretty accurate. So we have the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy, including The Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, and We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. They're nice and cute and not that heavy, so they're great to read during summer. I haven't read these for 5 years, and it brings me back to the time when I first read them, and it makes me nostalgic for that time. And the last 2 books we have are both Sarah Dessen books. This was the first time I had ever read a Sarah Dessen book. I read Once and For All and Saint Anything. Saint Anything is kind of bad because I mostly don't remember this book and it was just kind of there. But I really did like Once and For All. I thought the use of the wedding stuff was really cute, and it led into the romance very easily, whereas Saint Anything is kind of annoying and like dating your best friend's brother, keeping it secret from her because, oh, we don't want to tell that because that creates drama, even though keeping it from her is even worse. Whew. That was a lot of books. 30 books in. I don't know how long. Like I said, some of these books I like more than others. Some I praise and like, these books are amazing, and some I was like, I don't remember a lot of these. With this video, this is not me saying, quarantine's over, let's party! Hey, you, come get me, give me a hug. Social distancing, what is that? What are these? I don't need these anymore. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. Please do remember social distancing should still happen. We should still wear masks when we go outside and limit the amount of times we go outside. I know it's tempting just to go and hang out with all your friends in a backyard, but it's still not safe. While you may be healthy or you may not be showing symptoms, you can still pass it on to people that are at higher risk. So this will probably not be the last video I made of books I read during quarantine. But anyways, I want to know from you guys, how has Corona affected your reading patterns? Have you read more? Have you read less? Please like this video if you do like it. It helps me know that I'm doing something good. And if you want to see more videos from me in the future, please do hit that subscribe button in the bottom right here. I think on this side, we're guessing. But I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.